Hello, today is Tuesday, the 20th of December, 2011. This will be a fantasy football video. I want to do another one today if I have time on early look at week 16 matchups. This is fantasy again. I'm in the finals against Venus Flytrap. I defeated Brownie Points here, 195 to 121. And in the first round, I defeated the Commission, 174 to 142. Therefore, looking at my last week's matchup before I move on to this week, I was obviously an underdog, which I've pretty much been all season long, and I didn't understand why I was, because my opponent put in Early Doucette, who was up against Cleveland. They were up against Cleveland. He got 8.2 points, and he was thumping with two poor games against St. Louis and Dallas, but he's been coming along. Don't know why I started him. I'm surprised he got as many points as he did, even. Seneca Wallace, I tried to trap him into taking him, and he did. He had a better performance than I thought he would have had. I thought he was good for about 7 fantasy points that week. Hey, Eli Manning got 5.78. Thank you, Washington Redskins, and a great defensive performance. Tim Tebow, thank you for an amazing game again. I figured you were a 25-point player per game on average, and he put up his first 25-point performance and my fantasy points, because this when you lose a half a point every sack. TJ Yates, this was his last start for me. I think it was his second, First, I don't know. Laurent Robinson, gets a touchdown a game. Torrey Smith, 16.7. Welcome to the bench this next week because you're up against the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. That was a garbage touchdown. I'm most likely going to be going with Titus Young instead, which was already on anyway, but Deshaun Jackson's playing. And he was on my bench because Deshaun Jackson was up against the New York Football Jets. You don't want to start receivers against the New York Jets. MJ Drew, or MJD, you don't sit him. He had a poor performance, I thought. Reggie Bush on fire. What a great performance. Brandon Pettigrew. Darren Sproles, what a draft pick he was. David Akers was been my key kicker for the last 2 months. Seattle defense, how were they only owned in 46% of Yahoo leagues? Seriously. How were they only owned in 46%? If you have them available, you don't have that great of a defense. Even if you have average or worse, go ahead and take Seattle. They put up 21 against the Giants, 17 against Cleveland. Then they started to slump a bit for 2 weeks against Cincinnati and Dallas. 8 points against Baltimore. 15 against St. Louis. 9 against Washington, 17 Philly, 17 St. Louis. So it was a no-brainer for me to play him against Haney and the Chicago Bears. 30 fantasy points. They got 2 defensive touchdowns, I think. Definitely 2. Another play in San Francisco. Yes, they've given up 28th most fantasy points to defenses, but in part 2 in the video, you're going to see why I so love the Seattle Seahawks against San Francisco in Week 16. Now, my matchup this weekend is the championship game against Venus Flytrap. Tim Tebow is going to be starting, and Kyle Orton. If you can get Kyle Orton in your spot, if you really need a quarterback so badly, go out there and grab yourself some Kyle Orton. Why? Well, he only put up 11 in his first start against Green Bay, but he's up against Oakland, who has given up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And we're just going to click up a list, and what we'll show is how they do against, they being the Oakland Raiders against quarterbacks. Stafford scored 29 last week against them. Rodgers, 16. Okay, that's under average for him. Matt Moore, 18. Haney, 18. Ponder, 19. Rivers, that's pretty much average these days for him at 13. Tim Tebow, one of his top performances at 24. Castle did poorly for KC. Oh, they'll be happy to have Orton instead. Colt McCoy got 15. Schaub got 21. Brady got 16. It's all week long. Orton, his first week against them, got 13 fantasy points as a Denver Bronco, that was. So, therefore, you really want to get him in your lineup. I'm putting him in my lineup with Tim Tebow. Laurent Robinson is starting. Torrey Smith is probably going to make it to the bench, because he's up against Cleveland, who has given up the least fantasy points. He's a hit-or-miss player. I don't really think I need a hit-or-miss player against Venus Flytrap. Last time I did, I started him, and I think I started him in Week 11. Yeah, I did, and I got 25 points because I need to gamble. That's the thing. When you have hit or miss players, and you're in a spot where you're an underdog, you play them. You play a hit or miss guy as underdogs. As favorite, you don't, because you want safe points. And 11, well, that was a tough matchup. I'll go to that one in just a bit. But I don't think I want to start him. We got Darren Sproles, and I got Sean Sweezum in there against St. Louis. I don't like the way he's kicking, but I think he's my best option for this week anyway. And then we got the Seattle defense. They're studs. I'm an individual defensive players, London Fletcher and Terrell Suggs, but Terrell Suggs is going. My first guy I'm going to go for is James Anderson. If I don't get him, it'll most likely be Lofton in Atlanta. I think he's on Atlanta. And my opponent, I think, is weak at running backs. He's got Marion Barber. And I hope you start him. I hope you start Marion Barber because I think he stinks. Ryan Matthews and Jonathan Stewart. Now, I'm kind of iffy on the Stewart thing, but he's only because he's up against Tampa Bay. Now, as far as the bench is concerned, he doesn't got much there. Tolbert, he's okay. Tomlinson, not worth looking at. Ridley, not even worth having on your bench, and he's on his bench. And I don't have a backup running back because right now I don't need one. But what I'm doing right now is I got 2 running backs I'm looking at. These are block picks more than anything, and I got the waiver over him, so I can decide who I don't want him to have, and he's guaranteed not to have him. And I'm thinking Kahil Bell because it looks as if, so I'm going to move him up on the waiver priority. And I'm probably not going to take David Akers. I'm probably going to keep him on my bench. I might switch this up with maybe somebody like Andre Johnson. I'm going to check his injury status before the end of the night. See what happens. And if he doesn't look like he's really going to do much, I'll get rid of him again. And then basically I can stop him from having him. Now, as far as wide receivers concerned, I'm probably going to put Titus Young in over the matchup against Torrey Smith. Even though they say he's not going to get too many fantasy points, don't believe what Yahoo or any of the other leagues tell you. Because ever since the Denver game, he put up 14.6 here against the Denver Broncos, about 11 against Chicago. These are PPR leagues, by the way. Carolina, 8.4. That's average. A poor performance against Green Bay of 3.8. An average performance against New Orleans of 8.1. A great performance against Oakland of 16.7. And last week he put up 11. This guy is talented. He's a rookie. He's going to be a sleeper pick for me next year. Him and the Megatron Calvin Johnson will be the top 2 receivers next year in Detroit. So I'm probably going to put him in. Deshaun Jackson I sat last week. And I've been sitting him for the most part for the last couple of months. But I sat him last week because he played the Jets. I sat him against this game here, and he played well, despite the fact that he's been just not there. So I'm probably going to start him. 19th most fantasy points, plus this is a league of return yards. Every 25 yards of returns is worth a point. So I'm probably going to start Deshaun Jackson, Titus Young, and Laurent Robinson. Deion Branch is on the waiver wires. If he's back from injury, he might be someone I might scoop up. Still not sure what to do about Sean Sweezum and David Akers, but here's the deal. David Akers is in a spot where I am so against the San Francisco 49ers next weekend. I'll explain that in the next video. And I can't see me putting Seattle on the bench right now, even though I have Denver for this Week 16 matchup. I had him for Week 14 and 16. I picked him up specifically for this matchup against Chicago. And I started him that week, and they got 10. And then I picked him up for this Buffalo game, but now that Seattle's play as well as they are, Buffalo's only given up 19th most. I'm probably going to play the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm going to now go to my Week 11 matchup. I guess I have to just make the changes on here. I'm going to go to my Week 11 matchup against the my opponent that I had. Because that was a game that I needed to win at the time. Well, I didn't really need to, but it would have been good if I did. I beat him 149 to 133. This was the matchup for that week. I had Tim Tebow and Ryan Fitzpatrick in quarterback against Brady and Rodgers, and they did what they did best. He had receivers Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, and Dez Bryant, and obviously Greg Jennings was a major weak link then. I put in Vincent Brown. Yeah, that was a terrible start. Torrey Smith, he was a hit or miss. I needed a hit or miss, and I took him in. And Laurent Robinson. Running backs, I had Bush and MJD. He had DeMarco Murray and Mike Tolbert. As far as tight end, I had Brandon Pettigrew. He had Jermichael Finley. He had a poor performance. And Danny Woodhead was my flex running back that week, which means that I did not play the running back of... I put Darren Sproles. It was a bye week. That's why. Darren Sproles was on a bye that week, which is why I was confused why I had Danny Woodhead there in the first place. David Akers was my kicker. I had the Dallas defense, Jason McCourty in Tennessee, and Rob Ninkovich. This was my sleeper pick. He didn't do so much, and I thought he was hit or miss that week. But he had Tennessee's defense against Atlanta that didn't do so well. Ryan Matthews had a poor performance. So anyway, thank you for tuning in part two, or well, it's not even a part two, but I'll talk more about this weekend's games when I do the next video. Thank you.